In this video, I'm going to be reviewing the Sailor Realo 1911 large fountain pen. I'll go over the specs, I'll do a writing sample, and I'll tell you what I like and don't like about this pen coming up. Blake here with Blake's Broadcast. On this channel, I review fountain pens, paper, and ink, and as always, I put links in the show notes in the description below. And if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button, it really helps out my channel. Alright, let's get on with the review. This is the Sailor 1911 Realo large size in burgundy plastic. This is an interesting pen because it's a piston filler, and there really aren't a lot of Japanese piston fillers out there. There's the Pilot, what is it, 912? If I got that wrong, let me know in the comments. And then if you know of any other Japanese piston fillers, let me know. That seems to not be a popular filling system for Japanese pens. I can only think of two brands that make them. Platinum does not make a piston filling pen. Now, this pen is significantly more expensive than the large 1911. So the large 1911 retails for $390, whereas this retails for $530. So quite a bit more, $140 more to have the piston filling mechanism. And I know in a previous Sailor video I had said it doesn't make sense to buy this because the ink capacity is less than that of a cartridge converter Sailor 1911 or any Sailor. Some people said that I was wrong about that, so I want to clarify that a little bit. The ink capacity of this, and I've tested it and then I've checked what other people have said, is right around 1 milliliter. Now, a Sailor cartridge is, I think, 1.1 milliliters. And the converter is 0.7 milliliters. So if you're just using the converter, this does hold more ink, but if you use a cartridge and you're willing to refill a cartridge, you'll get more ink capacity out of that cartridge. I don't know. I guess maybe I was slightly wrong, slightly right, half right. Anyway, the ink capacity isn't that good. Another interesting thing about these pens, and I read an article, which I'll try to find, and if I can find it, I'll link it in the description. An article, I believe was, I want to say it's called Tokyo Pen Station, something like that. Anyway, they took this pen apart and they took apart a Aurora 88, and they said that this pen is essentially mechanically a clone of an Aurora 88. And when you see it taken apart, you can see that it is very, very similar, at least, to an Aurora 88. So interesting that, you know, they would be copying them. Part of the reason that this doesn't have a particularly large capacity is that there is like an the ink reservoir is like a tube that's sort of inside the body versus using the actual body as part of the ink reservoir. Now, this is not a captive converter. From what I have seen from the teardown, it is a proper piston filler. However, the ink doesn't come up against the body like it does on most, German piston fillers, where the ink is really interacting with that outer material. So you get a bigger ink capacity, in a similarly sized pen. So if you had a Mont Blanc 146, the Legrand, you would be having a larger ink capacity than you get out of Sailor Realo. Okay. Let's walk through the pen. So this, and actually I should say that this pen also, they do the Realo in the Pro Gear version with the flat tops instead of the 1911 Profit or Profit or whatever, however you say that this one is. So you get some options there. Now, this is the torpedo shape of the 1911. Very nice looking pen. Sailor quality is really quite good, but yeah, typical torpedo shape. There's nothing special on the finial or the tail there. We have stepped clip design here, which kind of flares out at the end, and then we have a ring on the finial there, and then we have a single cap ring, and then we have founded 1911 Sailor Japan on the main cap ring there, which is raised in the middle. And then my favorite part of this pen really is that we have this exposed ink window here with two gold rings on either side. I think it looks really nice. You can see what color of ink is in the pen with the cap on. I like this detail quite a lot. Now, it's a threaded cap, and this is interesting. It's So this is the new updated style sailor nib. So it's 21 karat gold, and we have the anchor logo, but it no longer says 1911. So just as to show that old style nib, and this is a king of pens, so it's a bigger nib, but you'll see it says 1911 on there. That is now absent on the new production sailor nibs. And at first I thought it was a bit weird looking. I didn't like it because I'm just so used to seeing that 1911 on there, but I actually think this is a better looking nib design. It's just cleaner. It's pretty nice. I like it quite a bit. On the side we can see F for fine, because this is a fine nib, and this is a very fine nib. So even with that 1 milliliter ink capacity, it takes quite a bit of writing to run out of ink with this pen. It does post nicely. It's a really nice pen. I think, when it comes to upgrades of like the standard pens, the other pen that I would consider it with that I also really like is the Platinum President. I believe this is $400. So it's definitely quite a bit cheaper than this pen. And of course it's not a piston filler, but you get, a nice upgraded nib and a bigger full-size type pen. Sadly, I don't think that Platinum is selling these in the US anymore, but these are really nice pens. Anyway, let's do some measurements. Capped, we're looking at about I would say 142 millimeters. Uncapped, looking at about 121 millimeters. Posted, because this does post quite nicely, looking at 154 millimeters, I would say. The grip section here, starting at the widest point here in the back, 11 millimeters, 1.3, and then right at the edge here before it starts to flare out is 10.4. So that's a very full-sized grip section. In terms of seams, there are no seams on the grip section, which I definitely appreciate, something that Platinum and Pilot do not do. There are seams, however, on the threading. Doesn't really matter. There's also this, I don't know if it's going to show up, there's like a red dot here right above that gold ring. Anyway, that's kind of an interesting flaw. Now when we do the weight, 21.41 grams, and it's pretty full. And then uncapped, 12.8. So it becomes quite light when it's uncapped. This is a super comfortable pen. It posts well. It works well for me. I don't find the cap to be too top heavy or anything. Very, very comfortable shape and weight, very enjoyable. Now let's do the writing sample. Doing the writing sample on a Papermind Mitsubishi Bank Paper notebook. These notebooks are really excellent with fountain pens, and for Blake's Broadcast viewers and subscribers, you can get 10% off with code BB10 at checkout. Okay, so let's do the writing sample. This is a Sailor 1911 large Realo fine nib, and this is Urban Pearl Noir. That was me, not the pen. So as I'm sure you can hear, there's a lot of feedback with this nib. This is typical Sailor fine nib performance. Some people describe it as writing like a pencil, and I think that is maybe the best way to describe it. It is somewhat position sensitive. I think 45 degrees is the angle that this nib likes the best. When I first got this, I thought it was too scratchy, but then after using it for a day, I actually really like it. It is uniquely a Sailor nib. It has, that typical Sailor feedback that you either like or don't like. I would not say that, everybody is going to like this pen. Some people will be much happier with a fine from Platinum or Pilot, as their fine nibs are significantly smoother than this. But this has a really nice feedback to it that I find enjoyable and more unique to Sailor. In terms of flexibility, this is a 21 karat gold nib, but there really isn't too much. You can get a noticeable amount, but I really don't find this to be a particularly soft nib, so I don't really bother playing with that. Now, in terms of reverse writing, it can do it. It doesn't feel, honestly, that much different than the other side of the nib, and you do get a slightly smaller line, but it's already quite fine. So what are my pros and cons for the Sailor Realo 1911 fountain pen? I like that this pen is a piston filler. That's pretty rare for a Japanese pen, so I think it's interesting in that way. I really like that we can see the ink window when the cap is all the way on. I really think that's a nice looking detail. I'm also a big fan of the 21 karat gold fine nib. It has a lot of feedback, so it definitely won't be for everyone, but it has a nice, I guess, pencil-like feel is what some people would say, and I think that's right. It just feels special. This fine nib feels very different from a Pilot or Platinum fine nib, which tend to be very smooth. So really enjoy writing with this pen. I like the looks of the pen. I think the build quality of this is very good. It feels on par certainly with Platinum and Pilot. It's a very nice pen, very comfortable pen to write with. In terms of cons, the price is very high on this pen. I think over $500 retail. Now, if you look on Japanese websites, you can probably get it cheaper. I bought this new from Japan for $180. I think the more typical price is maybe around $200. At that price, I really do like this pen and recommend it if you want a piston filler. Other cons, well, it doesn't hold a huge amount of ink, so the benefit in terms of ink capacity of this over a standard cartridge converter Sailor fountain pen is pretty minimal. Or in fact, if you use a cartridge holds a little bit more ink than this pen does. This does hold more ink than a converter. Well, again, as a con, that nib, it's probably going to be too scratchy for a lot of people. And because there is a good amount of feedback, this can scratch paper pretty easily. So certain papers are more susceptible to being scratched, and that can lead to bleeding and feathering, where normally a pen with this fine of a nib wouldn't be causing that to happen. So you do have to be a little bit more careful with your papers using this pen. That's a definite downside. That's pretty much it. Do you guys have this pen? Do you like this pen? Let me know in the comment section below. If you like this video, please hit that like button. And if you want to see more fountain pen, paper, and ink videos, please hit that subscribe button. Thank you so much, and until next time.